Germania a trecut cu bine prin alegerile parlamentare și va avea un nou cancelar, unul care are deja replici directe pentru afirmațiile venite de peste ocean. Europa și Statele Unite reprezintă cel mai solid parteneriat din lume. Reașezarea relațiilor nu face decât să întărească această legătură, chiar dacă, pentru moment, nu pare deloc așa. În orice caz, europenii sunt uniți, iar în această notă, România și Germania sunt mai hotărâte ca niciodată să lucreze împreună, cum fac deja de 145 de ani. Sergei Bauer, ambasadorul Germaniei la București, și Adriana Stănescu, ambasadorul României la Berlin, sunt invitații mei de astăzi. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport diplomatic. Sergei Bauer, Ambassador of Germany in Bucharest, Adriana Stănescu, Ambassador of Romania in Berlin. Welcome both to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you so much for having us. Great pleasure.
We are recording this interview before the German parliamentary elections, but putting this aside, we are living now a period where everything looks that is going to be shifted across the globe, and the position of Europe is looking somehow weak. How would you describe Europe's relations with our main partner, being United States, from the German perspective first and then from the Romanian perspective? Ambassador Gebauer.
Thank you very much. Of course, it's a key question for all of us, and we strongly believe that we have benefited greatly from a strong transatlantic partnership. The German-US relations have been very in depth, very sound, very positive over the last decades. We have benefited greatly from that. We believe the US has done the same. And we continue to believe that this is also the path into the future. We are strong supporters of a continuation of this collaboration. Yes, we see with the new US administration a number of, let's say, disruptive elements, of more questions, of more debates on certain issues that we felt were certain. But I think we can take this also as an opportunity to improve ourselves when it comes to security, building up our capacities to defend ourselves in Europe. That's a key ask of the US for the last time. We need to move forward, and we can move forward. So I remain optimistic that we can continue to build on this very strong partnership.
And Ambassador Stănescu, what's the Romanian view over this topic?
In a nutshell, I would say I could not agree more with my colleague in Bucharest. Of course, there were messages sent from over the ocean, from the American Vice President. We've seen the position of Washington on a number of issues which are very important for us, meaning first the relationship with the European partners and, of course, Ukraine and peace in Ukraine. So these are key issues for us. Our response was that we count on our European alliance, we count on our American transatlantic partnership, and of course we are ready to work together to strengthen our values and security on our continent and in our neighborhood. And also, what is important, Romania is committed to be at the table and to take its fair share and contribute to peace in our neighborhood.
Europe now needs to defend itself more, that's clear, since everything was said and done in Munich. But there is this discussion at the level of all European chancelleries, how shall we defend ourselves? It was a recent meeting in Paris with some leaders of Europe. No clear conclusion, though, to all this. How do you see the solutions to these problems? Germany first and Romania second.
You're right, this is a key prerogative for all of us in Europe now to beef up our defense capacity, our strengths to defend our interests and our values. We, of course, need to spend more. It's a question of financing. There are a number of ideas floating about how to best implement and how to best facilitate a higher defense spending. But, of course, we are way beyond the 2% goal. I think we are more 3 or higher % of the GDP that needs to be spent on defense. There are a number of issues apart from money that need to be tackled and that they are tackled. We, of course, have to build up our European defense industry. This is something we have not so much put focus on during the last years or decades, one might say. We have to tap into the potential of a better collaboration within Europe. If every individual European member state has its own weapon system, that doesn't make much sense, right? So we need to focus on joint projects, on joint procurement, which will also then be beneficial in terms of getting better prices. We have developed, and we are discussing right now on the European level, of course, as you know, European defense industry strategy and plan. So these will be instruments to regulate this build-up. And then, of course, there's also a need to change our mindsets. We have done this over the last 3 years after the Russian aggression against Ukraine began, but we have to better understand that it's not a faraway war taking place in Ukraine. Russia will continue with its aggressive behavior. So we need to make sure that we are ready for a confrontation. Best way to avoid a war with Russia is to be stronger. Then they will not dare attack us. Otherwise, there's a great danger of Russia taking the next step.
And Ambassador Stănescu, since you've been in Munich and you were at the table, how are you going to continue to be at this table? With what ideas?
Yes, there was a lot of talk in Munich also about the fact that we need to read and understand exactly the messages that we are receiving from our partners and to discuss among ourselves about what we are going to do, what can we contribute, and where our common interests are, particularly on the European continent altogether. So the meeting in Paris that you mentioned is a first in a series of meetings which will take place between European partners within NATO and also with our American partners to set exactly the contributions and the possibilities and the way forward. Of course, there is a sense of urgency here, and we are very much aware of that, and our leaders already gave the good messages, the proper messages to the public, and of course we need to communicate more about what is happening in our neighborhood and also in our countries. It is important, as also Per was saying before, it is important to strengthen our capabilities in military terms, but also in societal terms, in terms of resilience. Our people need to understand what is happening, what our commitment for our security and for our democracy needs to be, and we have to work even more on that, to communicate and also to put ourselves together and to work more. And of course, military industry is a very important part in it. We do have already a good partnership and good dialogue with Germany and also with our partners in the world. There is talk about more than 100 different systems which are produced by the European countries, European military industries. So we need to have a standardized way of producing military equipment and also equipping us with the proper military means.
At the level of European Union, there is a big talk about this and also about the budget for all this spending on defense. Putting aside the spending for NATO, Europe wants to build its own army. How can this money be spent? I mean, how a European defense will look like? Who will do what?
Very good question. We, of course, as also Adriana has just pointed out, need to focus on more joint projects, joint production, increasing the interoperability, increasing, of course, the financial benefit for all of us. We, of course, also, and that's, for example, the case when it comes to air defense and protecting ourselves against incoming drones, rockets, and other military means, to set up joint systems. Of course, if we are one continent, it makes sense to have one joint umbrella against incoming air threats. We need to then, of course, and that's what you have been referring to with your question, to think of, can we maybe have a bit of a sharing of who is concentrating on what capacity? because we don't need to double and triple certain capacities that you only need once to defend Europe. At the same time, we must not leave any blanks. So there's a very great value in better coordinating maybe who does what. But integration, this might be the key term for it, is key to make sure that we can defend our joint continent. We are obviously in a lucky situation that we do not have to worry about, protecting each other against one another, because these times are luckily over. But of course, the threats from outside have increased, and that's the only way forward, as I've described, is to better integrate.
And what's Romania's view on this? What are our plans at this big table?
It is a process which has already started since a number of years, putting our capacities together and producing together military equipment. The industry is already way ahead in this respect, and of course the military industry expects and asks even stronger these days for support from the governments, and of course not only financial support but also legal support in setting the proper frameworks. This is part of a discussion which is taking place in Brussels and also in our capitals, even in Germany. I noticed recently there is a new strategy regarding military industry. So things are happening even if, as we speak actually, even if we do not notice them on a daily basis, because it's a lot of underground debate and work, as we might say, in the parliaments and of course in the administration. What we see now is a sense of urgency, because we do have these strong messages from Washington. There is this strong expectation, and it's not only about money. It's about how you use and how you implement the projects that you decide on this money. There are projects which are discussed at the level of the European Union, common projects, but there will be also bilateral projects. So we will need to do as we did before in NATO as so far, to decide exactly what capabilities are needed where, and also to decide among ourselves who will take the lead for certain capabilities. It's probably very well known the framework nation concept, which is implemented within NATO and which is run by, one of them, for instance, is run by Germany. So we will have this kind of common projects which will be run by a leader and will get together the contributions of some or all the countries in the European Union and European partners in general, because we are also speaking about Great Britain and others which are supporting our efforts.
The leaders of both Germany and Romania, and also a lot of leaders at the level of European Union, said they will support Ukraine till the end. At the same time, the European citizens have their own needs, both in Germany and Romania. Everyone says, why shall we support Ukraine when we have so many problems at home? And it's again a very normal thing to say. How to balance these two?
It is a balance that is needed. You're fully right. We have, of course, as you have said, committed to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. This is very necessary, not because we just want to be nice to our neighboring country, but because our European security is at stake. If Russia prevails, if Russia conquers all of Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova will be next, then the Baltic states, you will see an ongoing sort of security threat to our European interests. So it is in our interest, and it is in the interest of all of our citizens, to defend our values also by supporting Ukraine. I think this must be communicated, because then, of course, it's less of a why are we helping others and not looking for ourselves. We are looking after ourselves by supporting Ukraine. But you're right, there are certainly many, many other issues that are pressing. High payments for housing, for example, or a lack of housing possibilities. Inflation, higher costs of living, energy costs are rising. So a number of issues that directly affect the daily lives of our citizens. We need to make sure that, of course, these issues are not sidelined, that these are tackled at the same time. And that leads to the question of, is there enough money to do all this at the same time? Well, this is obviously complex. But the strength of our democratic systems is that we always have a way of developing a joint answer, of having regular elections, of hearing the voice of the people, and in the end we will always find a compromise. The most important part is to not have these two issues, support for Ukraine in the sense of defending our security and social issues being played out against one another. Both are important and both need to be equally looked upon.
In case of Romania and also in case of Germany, we have citizens that start to believe that maybe it's better with Russia. How shall we convince them, or the other way around, or how shall we explain them better that we had that already and it was not okay?
Yes, you know, I'm coming from a generation that, you know, we were in the streets something like 35 years ago. And we know what it means to fight for your liberty, and you know what it means. We know what it means to want to live in freedom and to have access to things which are possible beyond the border, and you are just looking, you are just seeing on television. So at least in my generation, we've been through this. I agree with my colleague, and I think it is to be clear for everyone also, and it's clear for most of the people in Europe already, if you look at the opinion polls, the fact that you know, fighting or supporting Ukraine is not only about Ukraine, but it is about our security and about our liberty and about our freedom and our way of life, which, of course, we want to preserve, and I think it's for everyone to think for himself or for herself how they see their future. But, you know, with respect to money, because I know that funding different priorities, like, for instance, you know, military equipment or social requirements, I know this is a difficult issue. So what I want to say is that we need in our policies to make it better, not necessarily to cut money from one area in order to finance another area, but to see the call of the time and to do it better for our citizens. And this means at the same time covering immediate necessities for our citizens and caring and providing for their security and freedom. So I think there is not a question of either or, but it's both. And if we get ourselves together and think together what our priorities are, I think we can do better, as we did 35 years ago, and not only that.
Another reason that we are recording this interview together from Bucharest and Berlin in the same time is the fact that Romania and Germany are celebrating 145 years since we have diplomatic relations. Do you think that after the German elections and in May after the Romanian elections, our countries will be more focused on themselves in interior, or will be still focused on the same connections we have for over 145 years?
I'm very, very sure that we will see a continuation of this friendship, partnership, because it's simply in our interests. Just looking at your own country will not help you when it comes to tackling the major challenges, security, economic competitiveness in Europe, and so on and so forth. So we need to embrace our partners, and Romania for Germany is an absolute key partner. We are deeply impressed by the development in the last years. Romania has achieved so much when it comes to, let's say, lifting of the rule of law, monetary mechanism, CVM, entering Schengen, finally, well-deserved, visa waiver program, OECD accession is on a very good track. So Romania is on an excellent path, and Germany is much more acknowledging today than maybe decades or years ago that there's a great value for us in intensifying this partnership.
I know that the personal wish of Ambassador Stănescu is the fact that most of Romanians don't know Germany as deep as we should. So what are the plans in this regard?
Yes, thank you. I will also add a bit to what my colleague was saying. You know, I do not believe in the possibility to develop a country and a society just by looking inward. It is not possible. It was not possible in our history, and is not a model for anyone. Of course, in times of election, everyone looks at what one gets for himself or for herself. It is a reality that the German citizens make up the largest number of tourists to Romania, but there is a lot of room for more. And I'm always leaning to my German partners, you know, in all my discussions, particularly to the people from the business who know Romania very well, but also to others, you know, in schools, in every place when I meet and talk to people, I'm inviting them to Romania to see us at home, to work with us. And, you know, I have a number of wonderful partnerships developing, some at the level of local administration, but also at the level of, you know, persons involved in cultural projects, economic projects, societal projects, you name it. You have partnerships in all areas of life, and I think that I'm convinced that we can do more.
Ambassador Gebauer, Ambassador Stănescu, thank you so much for this common interview.
Thanks so much for having us in your show. Thank you.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe conturile noastre de X și Instagram. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!